What does it take to make workshops work? And how can we facilitate collaboration that sticks and leads to results? My name is Myriam Hadnes, and with the Workshops Work podcast, I'm on the mission to find the magic ingredients that make workshops work. And today is a special episode, because I will be switching seats with Michelle Howard, who was on this show before, and she will interview me about the Never Done Before Facilitation Festival. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Myriam, for sharing your microphone with me. It's very exciting to be doing this from the other side of the world, and it signifies to me the kind of collaboration that you have supported with Never Done Before. So it's really lovely to be talking to you, Myriam Hadnes, who has held the space for so many of us as facilitators to share our knowledge and our wisdom and our experience with others. And I am very excited to allow you the space to share some of your interest and energy, particularly around this event that we are both involved in, Never Done Before. And I guess just by way of context for Never Done Before, your level of enthusiasm for facilitation is outstanding. And I'm curious about what your belief is in facilitation, why you are attracted to it as a skill, and what is it that makes you want to hold this space for others.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation, which kind of feels scary and strange, but I'm grateful for. Facilitation for me is a skill that enables something that is stronger and more important. And I came to realize that in a time where we talk about automation, about machine learning, and about AI, what is really irreplaceable is teamwork. And teamwork in whatever context is also one of the most complex things we can think of. They're adult human beings coming together with different personalities, different perspectives, and they're about to create something new. And I think to make this process of teamwork, of collaboration easy is a skill that is not only a nice to have, I think it's crucial for really pushing innovation, for pushing growth. And therefore, I think that facilitation is really a skill that will be learned or will be as normal to be learned and mastered by managers as today is project management skills or presentation skills. So I think I really see the bigger picture of facilitation. That's why I care so much, because with the skill of facilitation, we can really help groups to grow bigger than their parts.
It's interesting, isn't it, that investment in human capital that everyone talks about, and yet what are the ways in which we support that human capital to flourish and to allow the hidden skills and aptitudes that are not necessarily in people's CV to bear fruit. And I notice how you have such a strong focus on supporting others to build that skill. And I'm wondering what you've learnt about that, about how do people build their capacity to facilitate well and to play that role of supporting human capital, supporting teamwork, supporting collaboration.
Yeah, supporting human capital, that's really at the core, as you say. And what I learned from almost 100 expert facilitators.
Right.
Everything I know about facilitation comes from my guests. And what I came to realize is that we're all so different. We all have, since facilitation is nothing that you earn a degree for, it's nothing that you sign up at uni for, but that you grow into. So everyone has their own path, their own history, their own lens through which they approach facilitation. And I think now it's mostly mindset, actually. We had this beautiful...
Sorry, I'm just saying, isn't it interesting how that ability to bring others together and get the best out of them is something that is taken for granted. And as you say, people learn other technical skills, but not this particular skill, and then are thrown into leadership and other situations without that capacity. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's not only the skill of planning a process or knowing how to cluster sticky notes, but to hold the space for these different personalities. And it is challenging, I think, especially for a team leader or manager who's also involved in the process and who has maybe stakes in the results. Then I think it's particularly difficult. But the constant challenge to allow all voices to be heard, although some voices might contradict with what we are believing and thinking.
Yeah.
And I think this requires a lot of inner work, which is much more difficult and important to do than to come up with a sequence of exercise that will help the group to think.
So how does Never Done Before fit into that picture? What made you come up with this idea of bringing people together around the world and creating a festival in a way that hasn't been done before? How does it fit in for you?
It kind of built up slowly, although the pace now looking back is not slow at all. I think it all started with me going to conferences and joining workshops, always with this slight disappointment of, oh, I've been there already. Oh, done that already. It doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like I'm really growing in the art and the craft of facilitation. So at one point I had the idea, what if all these beautiful facilitators that I have in my network firsthand through the podcast, what if we came together and would do something that is really state of the art and new, where those who join will be just inspired because what they experience and what they see is something that they haven't seen before. And from this crazy idea, I initially started to plan a physical conference together with Myriam in Amsterdam, and then Corona hit. And then it was Oscar Trimboli in a recorded conversation that we posted on YouTube, who basically pushed me and said, Myriam, it's now that Never Done Before has its space. And I think it's now indeed that it's time it feels, at least, I'm surely biased, but it feels as if by now everyone figured out how a video conference works. Everyone figured out how complex it is to host a meaningful online meeting. So everyone understands what facilitation is and that it's kind of important. And now it's time to get the next step. Because the meetings don't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be just a wall of blubbering, of talking without engagement by the participants. And I think there's so much to explore. And yeah, the guests of the podcast are just the perfect hosts and facilitators to do that. Also because for the participants, what I think is important, that, I mean, to be honest, none of us is a shining star. So we don't have, in our profession, we don't have celebrities. So when we, be very honest. So when we sign up to a conference and then we see all these names of facilitators, it's like, okay, nice, sounds good, but who are these people? So I'd never done before what was also my imagination and dream is that participants don't have just to trust that a name is a name and will be the right person. No, they can go to the podcast, they can listen to the show and have their own opinion. And I think that's very important.
Mm. And you've really pushed the boundaries even in planning the conference. I notice, as someone who's part of that, that every step of the way has been a never done before. Can you tell people a little bit about the process of pulling the conference together? Because it's been very collaborative and very new.
Sometimes a little messy. Yeah, I think at one point I realized that luckily I was naive enough to start all of that. Because if I had been conscious about the work and the complexity of this project, maybe I would have never started. Maybe. But it's fun. So I think it started with the first challenge that, okay, I want to bring this group of people, of expert facilitators together who are very short in time and who don't know each other and who are kind of all around the world. So it started with that, and I realized that, okay, it was also very special times. So everyone experienced COVID, the lockdown. Many of us lost very quickly substantial amounts of our income. And very quickly I realized the magic that happened when this group of strangers connected by a shared passion and by this small connection of the podcast came together and they opened up and shared, and kind of, it was very magic, I must say. And then the question was, okay, how can we make sure? I'm not the kind of person who wants to push people and force them, and I don't want to put ties on someone. So whoever wants to join can join. No hard feelings. So how can we make sure that everyone can join whenever they feel like joining, but still can get all the information when they missed a meeting? So I started this Mural board where I thought, okay, all the information, all the ideas we ever generate, we just drop them on the Mural, and then everyone can just explore the Mural and we'll be on track. Well, I think it's difficult to generate this habit of going to a Mural and look for the information, and it's very difficult to organize information and raw ideas in a way that everyone can actually follow if they haven't been in the meeting. So this was step one, and the first calls we had, I mean, you know that, with a team of facilitators or podcast guests, was basically just ideation. Okay, what does never done before mean? How would such a 24 hours conference look like? What are the building blocks? How does an agenda mean? And what are the parts that really have to be never done before? And what are the parts that actually we don't want to reinvent the wheel because they just add complexity? And one thing, was that we realized that we don't want to just come up with an agenda and the lineup on behalf of our audience, because this is so always done before. So how can we turn it around and actually invite the audience, the participants, to tell us what is there that you want to learn and explore? And in this process of thinking, okay, how then to select the content, the anecdote of Boatface came into my mind of this UK government agency, a huge multi-billion, I think, pounds research project, how to give a name to a government submarine research project. And they asked the internet, and the internet came up with Boatface and thought this was a genius idea. So thereby we learned, okay, just asking the internet what they want to hear is maybe not so effective. So we want to involve those who have skin in the game. So daringly, we started selling so-called design passes for the festival to invite those for a small fee to help us to design the agenda. And this group now grew to almost 100 people, and it became a community of practice and exchange. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because the sowing the seeds for participation and success has required you to make yourself quite vulnerable, to be very open. And literally, you and I both have a fondness for improv, so to be accepting of all offers.
Yes.
So there's been a vulnerability there about let's see who turns up, and then a real willingness to accept whatever is offered. And I think that's a really interesting approach, because often conferences are so much more prescriptive than that, and not necessarily designed with the end user in mind, let alone involving the end user in the actual conference. So I found that really exciting, and I think that's a really interesting way of connecting with your audience and what your audience wants.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the next bit, which is what can the audience expect to experience, and what might people take away from that experience? So what's it going to feel like? What's it going to be like? And what might I take away?
Yes. And before I answer this question, I would just like to add one reflection on your previous comment, because I think that's also for the audience who listens to this conversation might be interesting, because for me, a very big learning with all this yes and improv approach and inclusivity, it is so important to set boundaries.
Yes.
And to define what is in and what is out. So to set the limitations of the canvas within which the group can play. This was a difficult process for me. But once I realized and once I got permission from the community, it made everything so much easier afterwards.
Well, it's a classic from facilitation, isn't it? Freedom within a structure.
Yes.
Yes, and that often something without structure is in fact not very free, because nobody knows what the rules are, so therefore it makes it hard to participate. Yeah.
Absolutely. If everything is possible, nothing becomes possible. And I think, so this ties now back into your question, what can the audience expect at Never Done Before? So play and experimentation within boundaries, yes. So we decided at one point that given that everything will be very experiential and experimental, we need a very clear structure when it comes to the flow. So all the workshops are 90 minutes long. All the workshops are followed by half an hour break. There are 3 different kinds of experiences some can join. So they're the small group workshops where it's really for 20 to 30 people together with the facilitator exploring different areas of facilitation. This can be around a topic, from very reflective topics of what does it mean to be a facilitator to very hands-on skill topics like how do I facilitate on my feet with this improvisation style when everything falls apart? How can I make sure that I can still guide the group? And then there are larger group experiences where maybe 100 people can join, where it's really more about this group experience and to facilitate large groups. And the third area are kind of open rooms. So the idea is that we want to create something that really has this festival character. You arrive and you don't want to leave. You arrive and there are things to explore. You can wander around. You're like, oh, what might be behind this door? So whenever a participant arrives, they will not be confronted with a list to scroll and a link to click so that they can join the workshop, but they will enter a lobby. They will enter a virtual lobby and have a smiling face behind the desk, welcoming them, giving them the link to the festival environment, which will be designed on a large mural so that it's really an exploration journey. and they will get access to their own learning journal. So every participant has their individual space to make sense of what they learned, because this is also something that came out with all the meetups with our co-designers, that they're longing for two things. One is time also to reflect, and the other one is community and these turn to your neighbor moments. So we want to create also opportunities for these turn to your neighbor moments. We collaborate with different video conferencing tools that allow for that. We'll have an island where participants can just enjoy time, exploration, and maybe in-depth conversations with other participants they met. And we're very proud that we found Braindate as a sponsor of our festival, so that participants can arrange face-to-face conversations with other guests for after the conference, so that they can really have this moment of reflection and connection, and then take it forward and not just close the festival and have another Monday morning.
That's an important one, because I know that a lot of us who facilitate really enjoy that visceral interaction of being in the room with people. And there's so many interesting conversations at the moment around virtual platforms and, what are the positives and the negatives around virtual collaboration. And so I think the human element of the conference is a thing that may be a consideration for people. What do people need to know about the different platforms? And as a participant, do I need to feel nervous? What if I'm not good at being an avatar or operating Mural, or, how can I participate in this virtual world, which is a real feast of different options, if I don't feel confident about those things?
I love this question. Thank you. And it's a valid one. And I think in the process, I am growing this muscle of trying things I haven't tried before and seeing that it's actually not so easy, but sometimes also not so difficult if you know that it's okay to struggle. And I think this is really so that's a spirit that we want to spark. It's okay to struggle, and you don't need to be an expert in everything right away. Most of the workshops, especially the small workshops, will happen on Zoom. So there is no need for participants to learn to jump into other platforms and to feel anxious. There will be opportunities, though, to try other platforms, and there will always be guidance. So if someone joins and feels in the mood, in the spirit to do something differently, we will be there to accompany them on this journey. The week before the conference, I really want to also offer kind of guided tours on Mural, because the festival landscape will be on Mural. We are making sure now that it will be as intuitive as possible, but still we don't know. And so we have a testing round with our co-designers, and then we'll have guided tours so that nobody needs to feel anxious or overwhelmed.
So it sounds like there's a nice balance between some curiosity around different tools and a human element of support that makes that comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can achieve that, this would be a win, yeah.
Now, you used the term mindset before, and I know it's taken a lot of energy and courage from you to curate the event. What's the mindset? What do I need to bring with me as a participant to get the most out of this event? How do you hope that people approach it?
Curiosity. It's really about curiosity, and I hope that the event will not only attract facilitators, but also those who heard about facilitation skills, but maybe would not consider themselves facilitators. A team leader who facilitates a team and now online and does workshops, but it would never have crossed his mind to call himself or herself a facilitator. If they could approach with just the mindset of, if I learn just one thing that will help me to have more engaged meetings, a more engaged team, and a better use of our collective time, then we're all good. And if they get to meet other peers, team leaders, facilitators, trainers, coaches who are in the same situation, they can therefore support each other beyond the festival. This makes my heart beat faster. So I'm really all about this peer support. I think there's so much we can learn from each other if we just open up and make time to listen and share.
It's a very generous community, the facilitation community. I think people recognise that sort of peer support, collaboration, interaction is really valuable, and seem very happy to offer and accept it. So it's accepting all offers, isn't it? Yeah. And in terms of what people might then walk away with or take away, I know that will depend a lot on where people are at. But in your mind, what is it that you hope people will take away from the festival?
Inspiration and courage to try out things differently, because it's okay. And one aspect maybe that we haven't mentioned yet about the festival is that we follow the analogy of the haute couture fashion show.
Yes. You Europeans.
Yes. And it started actually because I found it so difficult to explain what I had in mind initially. And then I was thinking of this haute couture fashion in Milan or Paris, and nobody would ever wear these clothes in the street, and they were not made for that. But still, they inspired the new fashion. So I imagine Never Done Before to be a little bit like that. But then also being conscious that, and this answers your question, that people will join from different time zones. Yes. So depending on where they are located, if someone is just sipping their morning coffee while the other one is drinking gin and tonic, they're clearly
you know
not
me too well. See, I don't have one tonight. I was going to, but I don't.
I have my coffee there.
I know, I can see your coffee.
And, I mean, now we're in the same vibe, but would we be in the same spirit of joining a workshop? Most probably.
But also, I guess I want to acknowledge that because we have been planning this globally, there are times where I've joined you in my pajamas because it's been 11 o'clock at night and it's been okay to have that conversation. And I can also hear that coming through, that it's a festival that can accept people wherever they're at. And, if they're joining first thing in the morning and they're full of energy, that's wonderful. And if they're joining last thing at night and things are a little bit slower and reflective, then that's fine too, which is so interesting because you don't often get that lovely shape and flow in a conference because, it starts at a certain time and then it's finished and it's done, whereas this has much more organic flow to it.
Yeah, and I think we often see the opposition as a challenge. So we have those joining in the morning and those in the evening. But also, what can we do to bridge them, to see the complementary energy instead of just the opposing? So what do those with a fresh early morning mind see that those with a kind of maybe tired evening mind cannot see, and how can we help each other seeing things? I think what I would like participants to leave with is this warm glow of community, that they found like-minded people and that they found that they realize that it's okay to just try something. Maybe it won't work each time, but also learning on how to deal with it. So for instance, the last co-designer meetup I hosted on a platform that I never used before. I had a test run. Unfortunately, the co-facilitator had to cancel last minute. And everything that could go wrong went wrong. But the fact of being open with it and being adaptive, improvising a little bit, and having this group of facilitators who just think along and think, okay, so we're here together. How can we make this work? How can we turn it into something fruitful? Was so inspiring for all of us. So I think even if we will face technical problems or maybe ideas that don't work out as planned, we have the opportunity to reflect on that and take away something, everyone for themselves, whatever it is they need.
And it's lovely, isn't it? Because it brings us back to those issues about vulnerability and risk, and how, and you and I have talked about this before, there is a brand of facilitation which is quite ego-driven and where people feel like they have to be in control all the time and get it right and, lead from the front. And what I notice about Never Done Before is it has a different timbre to it, which is about people being free to take risks, make mistakes, explore something new, which is, that's not an opportunity which we have often. The expectations are that we need to do the best job. And in this case, people will do a great job and that might not be the job they thought they were going to do. Yeah. So there's a spirit of adventure and exploration that I notice. And I guess there's an opportunity for people participating to be global adventurers with us and explore, round the world in that same way.
Yeah, and to have the opportunity also to openly reflect. So what if we just dissolve the boundaries and the masks and we are there to experiment, to try something we haven't tried before? This gives us permission that it's okay if it doesn't work as planned. And as a participant, to have the opportunity to then reflect on that and to analyze a workshop, to participate in a workshop in this meta level. Yes, there are exercises that we can learn, but there's also the art of facilitation we can learn on how to handle different situations that I think are fantastic learning opportunity for everyone who participates that they wouldn't get under normal circumstances, where facilitators, as you say, maybe don't have permission or the willingness to admit, oh, actually, I didn't plan that. This just happened, but it's never done before. So it's okay. Right. Let's discuss what just happened and take a learning away. Yeah.
And it reminds me of that, the whole creative process, that creativity often does happen in those less expected moments, where we make a mistake and find something new. And that's definitely, I've seen that all the way through this process. So if somebody wants to be part of this, if we've whet their appetite and they're feeling like they want to play with us and have a little global adventure, what should they do? What are the options and how do people sign up?
Yeah, so all the basic information is on the website. It's www.neverdonebefore.org. If you add a /agenda, you will get to the mule board, which is our design challenge agenda, how to show everything that's going on in the 24 hours event. To join, we have 3 different passes. Following the same analogy of the Haute Couture fashion show, we have the press pass for those who want to visit and get a feeling from a little bit afar, so they can join all the large group experiences, all the big workshops, and all the open spaces, open collaborative spaces. Then we have the model pass for those who want to get on stage. So they have access to the smaller workshops where really they're going to participate hands-on, and to all the rest that is also offered in the press pass. And then we have a very special backstage pass for those who really want to go deeper and to take full advantage of this abundance of world-class facilitators who are there. So with a backstage pass after each workshop, they can stay in the room, air quotes, and debrief with the facilitator in a very kind of honest, unsugar-coated way. Okay, what did we experience? What happened? What did we plan? And they get a one-on-one coaching slot with one of the facilitators of their choice. And after the festival, access to a mastermind session to really deepen the learnings. And all passes get the recordings of the sessions right away, as long as the platform we're using allows live recording.
So exciting. Thank you again for creating the space for this to happen and for inviting so many of us into the room to work with you. It's going to be amazing. It's definitely like nothing any of us have experienced before, and I really can't wait to share it with people from all around the world.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for joining the journey and believing in it. This is really a gift. Thank you. Thank you for your interest in the Never Done Before Facilitation Festival. We really hope that you enjoyed this behind the scenes interview and conversation between Michelle Howard and myself. And if you want to join the festival, visit NeverDoneBefore.org and get your pass today. We're very much looking forward to welcome you in the Slack community and to start collaborating with you even before the festival starts on November 20th, 2020.